Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 3, and Chapter 3 is all about hardware, computers, and mobile devices. And we're going to start this the way we always start. I'm going to do some boring part and read. But on page 104, they talk about the objectives for this chapter. So let's just go through them rather quickly. Describe the characteristics and uses of desktop, laptop, tablets, and handheld computers. Describe the characteristics and types of servers. Differentiate among point of sale, terminals, ATM, and self-service kiosks. Describe cloud computing and identify its uses. Describe the characteristics and uses of smartphones, digital cameras, portable media players, that kind of stuff. Describe the characteristics and ways to interact with game devices. Woohoo, we could have an entire class on that. Identify the use of embedded computers. Differentiate a port from a connector. Identify various ports and connectors and differentiate among Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and near-field communication, NFC. Identify safeguards against hardware theft and vandalism. And then identify ways to prevent health-related injuries, for humans, not the computer part, but for the poor humans. Okay, so let's begin. On page 104. They basically talk about the types of computers, and they talk about desktop and mobile computing, servers with terminals, we're going to go into that, smartphones and digital cameras, yep, game devices, and embedded computers. So again, on page 104, there's a definition of what a personal computer is, and their definition is as good as any. It talks about a personal computer is a computer that can perform all of its input, processing, and output and storage activities by itself and is intended to be used only by one person. So the whole idea of the personal computer was, of course, that this was your computer and you were going to be the only one using it. That's what made it personal. Okay. There's actually a pretty cool buyer's guide on page 107 to 108. If you were in the mood to buy a new computer, what should you look out for? And actually, this is not a half bad little section, so I'm just going to go over it. It talks about, specifying the kind of software that you need, what are the system requirements, what kind of software comes bundled with the machine. That'd be kind of cool. Make sure you don't buy the least powerful one. If there's a whole row of computers there for you to choose from, don't buy the wimpiest one. You should have an upgrade path of some sort. You should be able to, add more memory or add another hard drive or swap out the keyboard or the mouse or the monitor. Consider touch. For a desktop, touch is a little strange because it's kind of at the wrong angle and you have to kind of reach out your hand like this to touch the screen. But for handheld devices, touch is really kind of cool. Consider an all-in-one, because all-in-ones typically are less complex. There's fewer wires, fewer cables, less to do. Physically takes up smaller space on your desk if that's an issue. Beware of hidden costs. And hidden costs are things like, okay, I've subscribed to an antivirus package, but I didn't know that it was going to cost me, so many dollars a year. Or I did a subscription service for Microsoft for Office, and gee, I didn't know it was going to cost me $100 every year. Those kinds of things. There also could be some tech support things. Now, some people buy computers not by the feature list. You bring up the spec sheet and go through that. It's not how they buy a computer. They buy a computer by, how friendly the people are and whether or not I'm going to call them on the phone and ask them dumb questions. It's the tech support part is the real key. And if you have local tech support, like somebody can jump in a truck and drive out to your house and say, no, let me show you, okay? That is worth an awful lot to some people. On the other hand, if you're just going to be calling on the phone and, talking to, put it on wait for forever and then finally talking to someone with a horrible accent, that's probably not the kind of tech support you need. So again, some people buy computers strictly on tech support. Cool. Then the last one, they talk about warranty, and I kind of disagree with the authors of the book here. I don't particularly spend much time thinking about the warranty. If it's a desktop computer, it's not going to be moved around anywhere. It's just going to stay put. you probably don't need an extended warranty. It's not going to be banged around in the passenger seat of your car. It's not going to be in your purse or strapped to your belt or anything like that. So it's not really going to get damage. I mean, sure, you might have homeowner type damage, but you already have insurance for that. So I disagree with their idea that you should spend more money on any type of extended warranty. Okay, so let's get back to desktops. So desktop is this thing. Now there's obviously two different categories. You have the desktop, which is kind of messy, where I've got a monitor and I've got some external speakers and I got a mouse and I got a keyboard and I have some sort of a computer somewhere, and it could be under the desk or it could be on the desk. And you can kind of sort of tell this might be bewildering to some people, having, oh my goodness, look at all those wires. And I need to plug everything in, and I don't know where anything goes. No. So a lot of people have been going towards these all-in-one. Now this happens to show an Apple brand, but almost all the major vendors do all-in-ones now. And it's just cleaner. There's fewer wires. Typically, for example, they have a wireless mouse and a wireless keyboard. And so the number of wires that are required to plug this thing in and make it work are significantly less. So if you're a neatness freak and you don't like wires hanging all over the place, then you might want to consider doing an all-in-one. Okay, but still, now even though it's an all-in-one, we still call it a desktop PC. And of course, the desktop part is the fact that it's primarily stationary. It's not moving around. So their definition on page 106, desktop computer is a personal computer designed to be stationary location where all of its components fit on or under a desk or table. That's not bad. Okay. Now contrast that with a laptop. So on page 108, they talk about laptops and mobile. So a laptop is and sometimes called a notebook computer. Now what's the difference between a laptop and a notebook? And to tell you the truth, it's really just marketing, okay? There's not really a hard, fast rule on what becomes a notebook and what becomes a laptop. It's just the smaller versions of the laptops are called notebooks. Okay. Now, I'll tell you, look, I've been playing with computers for 30-something years, and I've bought one of the very first laptop computers. And for 20-something years, I've had multiple laptop computers, and in all that time I think I've actually used it on my lap, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times tops. To me, the laptop is a portable computer that I'm going to set on a surface and open up and use. Okay, I'm not holding it in my hand and I'm not cradling in my lap. Generally that's not how I do business. To me it's just a portable computer. Okay, but their definition is a thin, lightweight mobile computer with a screen in its lid and a keyboard in its base. That's not half bad. So they talk about the difference between a tablet. And tablets are the ones that typically either don't have a keyboard, or the keyboard is detachable, or the keyboard folds away somehow, where its primary means of input is through touch or pen. A touch-based tablet or a pen-based tablet is what they're talking about here. So that's really kind of the distinguishing factor between a laptop and one of these tablets. Okay, so they talk about a tablet is a thin, lightweight mobile computer that has a touch screen or a pen screen. There's a pretty cool set of buying guide, again, on page 111 and 112, if you were in the market for buying a laptop. Let's go through it. They talk about the form factor, physically how big it is. I mean, you can get laptops and tablets and stuff that are, itty-bitty little guys, but then you have to kind of, if you have bad eyesight, you're really going to be in trouble. So a lot of people think that, for a laptop sitting, 2 feet away from you, that the minimum size is like 14-inch. That's kind of what they think. Smaller is lighter, obviously. If I want to go to 14-inch, it's going to be a penalty for weight. So that form factor and screen size are critical things. You should have a choice of pointing devices. Now, this is one of those almost religious fervor behind it. Some people like the little trackpad. Some people like the little pointy stick. Looks like a little rubber eraser that popped up in the middle of the keyboard. There's lots of other types. So that's just kind of personal preference. Touchpad seems to be the most common these days. A lot of people hate it to the point where they carry their laptop with them and then they carry a small mouse that they plug into it because they just can't stand the fact that that touchpad is there. But anyway, so make sure you have whatever the type of pointing device you want. Upgrades, again, the book is kind of off the wall here. Typically, when it comes to small laptop, tablet price range, there really is no upgrades. I mean, you don't normally crack open the case and do anything to these machines at all. Maybe you can add some more memory, maybe. But the newer versions, there's less likely that you're going to be able to find any user serviceable parts at all. The number of ports. If, for example, you plan to put a wired mouse, well, then you probably need a USB port. If you're going to be doing a lot of things, maybe you need more than one USB port. So the number of ports on your small device is probably an important decision when you're making when you're going to be buying one of these guys. They talk about battery life. Now, this is one of those things where they spend an awful lot of time in marketing. They talk about 8 hours of battery life, and I'm thinking, I'm never that far away from an electrical outlet. I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. You guys must be living a different life than me, because if I'm in a classroom or something, that's a couple of hours. If I'm on a plane, that's a couple of hours. I mean, never am I away from an electrical outlet for 8 hours at a time. And certainly not 8 hours of continuous use of my machine. So that's great marketing, but kind of a small consolation. I think the only way you could ever get away with saying you had great battery life is if I never had to bring my battery charger with me, okay? If the battery life was so good I could leave that thing at home and go on a business trip and come back the next day, woohoo, that'd be cool. One less thing to carry. But I don't think anyone does that. They all bring the charger with them because even if it has fantastic battery life, they still have to charge up. Okay. And then they talk about having some sort of a padded case. No, we're not talking about a padded cell where you guys belong. We're talking about the padded case where the computer should be stored when it's bouncing around the passenger seat of your car or thrown in an overhead bin in an airplane. Okay. Let's continue. On page 111, they talk about handheld computers. And handheld computers actually does have a pretty well-defined and simple definition. It's a machine that's designed to be held in one hand. Yay! There's hardly any gray area there. It's pretty straightforward what is and what is not a handheld. And so a lot of the phones and PDAs and things of that nature are handheld devices. So their definition, this is handheld computer is a computer small enough to fit in one hand. Yay! Okay, and then they talk about servers. Servers are, of course, these usually big machines, physically large, and most nowadays are not the kind that sit on the floor or sit on a desk. They sit in a 19-inch rack, and they just stack in there. And you've probably seen lots of photographs and things like this one, where they have a gargantuan data center. This looks like something out of all the TV shows you see, right? Where there's rows and rows and rows of these racks and with blinking lights and stuff. And in reality, this is a 19-inch rack, and each machine is 19 inches wide. And the computers go on the inside. And this is have fans on the inside to kind of keep the noise down. And all the cabling is underneath the floor, so it kind of looks pretty cool. But in this picture, there's probably several hundred individual computers in this photo. So servers are typically, physically large and typically mounted in some sort of a rack such as this. And you would obviously you would probably not have one of these at home. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.